The battleship Yamato, the biggest, baddest, most useless ship ever built. In 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy launched the largest, most heavily armed battleship ever constructed. The Yamato displaced 72,000 tons, carried 9 18-inch guns, the largest ever mounted on a warship, and carried more armor than any vessel before or since. The Yamato and her sister ship Musashi consumed steel, oil, and skilled labor on a scale that beggared the rest of the Japanese fleet. The construction was conducted in absolute secrecy. The crews were told to tell their families they were building ferries. The strategic logic behind the Yamato class was simple, if flawed. Japan's naval planners assumed the decisive battle against the United States would be a surface engagement fought by battleship lines. They built the largest battleships to win that engagement. The problem was that the decisive battleship engagement never came. By the time Yamato entered service in December 1941, the Japanese carrier strike force had just destroyed the American battleship fleet at Pearl Harbor from the air. The attack on Pearl Harbor proved what naval aviators had been arguing for a decade. The aircraft carrier had rendered the battleship obsolete. The Japanese, who had just executed the most devastating carrier strike in history, refused to accept the implication. For most of the war, Yamato sat at anchor. The Japanese Navy was reluctant to risk its super battleship in the Solomon Islands campaign, where American carrier aircraft dominated the skies. So Yamato waited for the decisive battle that never arrived. When the Japanese fleet finally sortied for a major engagement at the Philippine Sea in 1944, Yamato went along. She was attacked by carrier aircraft and took only minor damage. But, the battle was really decided by pilots, not by guns. Leyte Gulf in October 1944 was Yamato's only real surface engagement. A Japanese surface force, including Yamato, slipped through a gap in the American line and attacked a group of escort carriers. The battleship fired its 18-inch guns in anger for the only time in its entire career. The irony of Yamato was that its very existence drained resources from the things Japan actually needed. The steel that went into its armor could have built hundreds of fighters. The fuel it consumed at anchor could have trained dozens of pilots. Every gallon of oil burned to keep Yamato's engines warm was a gallon not used to train the pilots who might have stopped the American offensive. Every skilled shipyard worker assigned to its maintenance was a worker not building the merchant ships Japan needed to import oil. In April 1945, with American forces invading Okinawa and Japan's navy basically destroyed, Yamato was given its final mission. The order was to beach itself on Okinawa and fight as a shore battery until destroyed. On April 7, 1945, 386 American carrier aircraft attacked the Yamato. The ship's anti-aircraft guns fired until they literally melted. But honestly, no surface ship, no matter how large, could survive sustained attack from the air. The Yamato took 10 torpedoes and 7 bombs before exploding. The explosion was visible from the Japanese mainland, a column of smoke rising 20,000 feet. Over 3,000 men went down with the ship. It had fired its main guns at enemy targets exactly once in 4 years of war. The story of the Yamato is often told as a tragedy, and, well, it really was. But it was also a lesson in strategic misalignment. Japan built the world's largest battleship to fight the previous war, then refused to risk it in the war that actually happened. When a military invests in weapons designed for a war that no longer exists, those weapons become anchors, literal anchors, that consume resources while providing nothing in return. The Yamato was not a failure of engineering. It was a failure of strategic imagination. The question the Yamato asks is simple. What are we building today that will be obsolete before it even sees combat? And what are we not building because we're too busy building yesterday's answer to tomorrow's question? If you want to understand why the biggest and baddest is not always the best and why strategy matters more than engineering, subscribe to War Machiner and share this with anyone who thinks war is won by the most impressive hardware.